Spoiler warning. The following discussion will contain spoilers. We recommend checking out the movie first, then coming back to hang with us. But if you don't care about that, glad to have you here. All right, everybody, welcome to the real rule of three. Between normal television and the vast amount of streaming services, it can be hard to determine what show deserves your attention. Have no fear, though. Adam and I will be taking a look at the first 3 episodes of an anime, and based on that, determining if the show is worth your time. Today, should you watch Attack on Titan? After his hometown is destroyed and his mother is killed, young Eren Jaeger vows to cleanse the earth of giant humanoid titans that have brought humanity to the brink of extinction. So Adam, welcome to the show. You're a new face.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, officially we have Adam here is one of the new Real Movie guys. He'll be joining us for our anime edition segments of the Real Rule of Three. Do you want to tell the people at home a little bit about yourself, Adam?
Well, as Kevin said, my name is Adam. I enjoy anime, which is why I'm here. A big gamer as well. Other than that, just your average guy, you know.
Maybe, but you're selling yourself a little short, my friend. You also have a talent that you're pursuing as well, which is another reason I think you're the perfect person to have on this show.
I'm an aspiring voice actor. We'll see where everything conversation-wise goes in terms of voice acting as well.
That's great, because we talked a little bit off air when we were talking about the show a little bit, and I'm like, I need someone for that, because when it comes to voice acting, you know, it's not my specialty. I could tell you about an actor, but as far as voice acting, that's a talent in of itself. I'm not 100% in. I'm excited about this. We're talking about Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan is a huge anime. Literally, no pun intended. There's monsters climbing over the wall. Attack on Titan is an interesting show for me because I know about Attack on Titan, but I don't know about Attack on Titan. If that makes any sense. I've seen the symbol everywhere. I know it's a big cosplay thing at cons and stuff like that, so it is really popular. It also came out around a time, now I don't know if this comparison will hold or not. I get the very heavy Walking Dead vibe from this show. It seems like it came out around that time, so I don't know if there is some inspiration at play or not, but I definitely see that as something that, you know, it is common for Japan to do that. We've seen that with like My Hero Academia, for example, has kind of taken over that role where they leech off something that's popular in America and they put their own anime twist on it. And so that show is a success. I don't know if we'll talk about that on the channel at some point, but Attack on Titan, I feel like it might be something similar to that in that vein.
No, I agree. I mean, compared to My Hero Academia, they're 2 completely different shows, but yeah, I agree. They have a similar vein.
So what do you know about Attack on Titan? What are you familiar with necessarily with the show?
Well, I know that it's extremely popular. I know a general gist of a lot that goes on.
Okay.
I know a lot of the main characters and stuff like that, but I mean, for the most part, in terms of like details,
Right.
I'm kind of, not exactly 100% on them, but I know a lot.
A lot of people I think are exposed to, a lot of like casual anime fans. It's always that one scene that you're exposed to over and over and over again. Yeah. Now, I don't have context for it just yet. We're going to get into that. But just seeing this giant like monster put its hand over the wall and kind of climb over, that seems to be like the general like image for this show. And that's exciting in and of itself. So I already got like a little bit of anticipation just to see what the hell's going on with this show. On point though, I think it's time that we just jump right into it. What do you think? You think should we just jump right into it?
I'm ready.
All right.
I'm ready like a Titan about to climb over the wall.
All right, here we go. Episode 1. To You in 2,000 Years. The Fall of Shiganshina, Part 1. This kind of blew me away, this episode. Yeah.
It's a lot.
Very few times would I say, I was almost at a loss for words at times. There's a lot that happens in this episode. A whole lot.
Yeah, it's, we're met with this incredible monster creature, and we're given all this backstory of all these different characters and this crazy elite group of, scouts that, hunt these things and whatnot. And they're just given in this first episode.
The opener is so finely crafted that it actually it took me by surprise for the most part. Literally, the show opens with silence. essentially, and you just see a Titan
Mhm.
just kind of shows up over the wall. You see a lightning strike, and in the background you have this narration. Now, for the fans at home who've been watching the channel, I'm not a fan of narration. I'm not. It's usually something I don't care for necessarily as a plot telling device in a show or a movie. Here, I think it did work effectively because we're being told the events after the fact. Just the
Right.
whole tone that is literally set for the show immediately is that they're just referring to themselves as cattle.
Home was a pen. Humanity, cattle.
Being surrounded by walls and there's nothing they can do. It just
Yeah.
really blows you away.
Yeah.
I don't
That's
even know what to say. And the art,
it's
the
the
art is
recurring theme.
beautiful.
I think it's different than a lot of other animes out there because of how it's just drawn differently, I guess, in the art style. I think there's a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
shading where other animes don't have, which makes it stand out a little bit more. I think it's so much more unique than some other art styles.
A lot of the characters have this like thick, bold
Yes.
black outline, and that pops from the
Yep.
screen definitely, especially against the
Hmm.
backgrounds. I didn't notice too much CG
Right.
being used, so I don't know how that. I feel like it was a lot of hand drawn, but if the CG is being implemented, I'm not noticing it as much because I think the character models are just so
It's
well
a very good
drawn.
job if it is.
When we were talking about this before, I spoke about the Walking Dead comparison, and I definitely got that without a doubt once we started that show. Essentially, when they're comparing themselves to the cattle, they're having that whole kind of speech. Now, Adam, I don't know how familiar
Hmm.
you are with the Walking Dead material, but there is a speech actually in the Walking Dead where the main character Rick Grimes compares himself that we are the Walking Dead. We are the zombies, and the show's kind of going that route. I feel like this has a lot of your stereotypical anime tropes. I don't know if you would agree with that. A
Right.
lot of the
Yeah, I'd agree.
like the young is more intelligent than the old. We see that constantly throughout anime. I don't know if that's more of a Japanese culture kind
Yeah.
of revolution thing they're going for, but
Right.
that's very common in this show. It's blatant right away. You're like, okay, adults know nothing.
Oh
It's
yeah.
the children and the youth.
When all said and done, the government's policies are a reflection of our fear.
Yeah, the rest of the herds maybe. I say to hell with them.
Yeah, it is immediate, honestly, the way that some of the characters interact, like right away. That they know more than the adults.
Now, how do you feel about the characters themselves? So we're introduced only to a handful of characters. We really don't get too many characters. I feel like these are going to be our leads. I'm assuming, at least for the most part. I know Eren obviously is the lead. You couldn't tell me he's not. We're also introduced to Mikasa, and we're also introduced to Armin. Now, Eren is a character.
Hmm.
I'll say to you, I'm not blown away by
Hmm.
him. I'm not really seeing
No,
anything unique about him
no.
just yet.
If anything, I think the first few episodes are a little bit of a struggle because he just seems like a whiny kid.
Huh? Irresponsible? So what? It's more grown up to settle for living in fear behind some stupid wall your whole pointless life?
Eren!
Whiny kid, very angry, like very like I hate everyone, I hate everything that's going on, but I can't do anything about it. I'm so weak.
Cool.
He's always yelling at everyone. I don't think he casually says a line of
Yeah.
dialogue in this whole first episode. I'm like, what are you yelling for? Like,
No.
calm down. Like, nothing even bad even happened yet, and he's already
Yeah.
like yelling at the top of his
no.
lungs. Granted, later. You know, we
Yep.
talked to some of the later episodes. We'll have some merit behind some of that dialogue, but right off the bat, like, dude, you gotta slow your roll
Of
a
course.
little bit. Like his defining characteristic
Yeah,
is
I'm
just
like,
anger
wow.
at this point.
Yeah, I know, I agree. It is because I was like, all right, which is so funny how much of a contrast he is to Mikasa
Right.
because she's literally the complete opposite, which is, I'm sure, the point.
We're not getting much from her from the first episode. I mean, we're setting ourselves up here too. It's only the first episode, so we shouldn't expect this whole drawn out like what the character's about.
Right.
But I do get a sense of she's like the conscience of Eren in a way, maybe more of like she kind of just
Right.
keeps the level head, keeps him in line.
Yeah.
I'm already noticing that with the character.
You should let the scout regiment thing go.
Seriously? Why does everybody think they're a joke?
What people think about him isn't really the issue.
So she is a good foil for him. I think I'm actually gravitating more to her character than I am to Eren right away, which is ironic.
Agreed.
Armin, I don't care for. We'll have a discussion later about Armin. I don't want to jump right into it. He didn't do anything for me yet,
Okay.
I would say. He's more of just the knowledge character. He's kind of giving us that extra little info dump that we're looking for, giving us some backstory on
Right.
how the youth actually feels about this whole situation.
Walls are a powerful idea. We've survived for 100 years because of them. No one's keen on tempting fate. I may not agree with that sentiment, but I can see where they're coming from. It's human nature, Eren.
Maybe more than the
Mhm.
characters, the setting is a bigger character than the actual characters in the show because the setting is phenomenally set up.
It is such a unique idea,
Right.
and it just there's so much awe and wonder as a, wherever all this is taking place, and it's just that's what I'm more interested in. I'm like, why is this like this? How did they get like this? That's what I'm more interested in.
Right. There's a lot of mystery, and I feel like we're getting some teases of some
Yes.
mystery already just within the first episode. I find it interesting they're doing some kind of, I don't know if it's a flash forward, flash back. With Eren, we had some strange dialogue that it seemed like it was out of place. Again, don't know if that's going to play into something later where
Mhm.
he's having a dream about the events that'll happen towards the end of the episode. But right away he's already imagining all this death and devastation. So you wonder, what is that necessarily?
Right.
Is that just his mind playing events in his head? Is there something more to it? I don't know. I'm not sure how to read that just
Mhm.
as of yet.
It's like the dream I was having went on forever. It's gone now. What was it about?
Eren, have you been crying?
It is interesting. It's kind of I don't know. It's just ironic how, he has this dream and literally a few hours later it actually comes true.
That is very
I don't
interesting.
know. It's a little ironic.
I agree. No, I
Yeah.
agree. Before we get more into the latter part of the story, was there anything else that like really stood out to you? Was there a moment that actually like grabbed you right away? I mean, the opening I would say firmly grabbed me, but was there anything else that really affected you at this point?
And we also have to talk about how much of a banger that the opening song is.
Oh, thank you.
'Cause that is so good. It
Wow,
is
the
so good.
chorus. Oh my god, that song's I'm like, this is this the best anime song I've ever heard? It's up there. I have to say, as far as like an
Well,
opener, like that really sets a mood on a whole nother level. Granted,
Yes.
the video itself probably falls into that sad anime boy cliche where they're all looking down at the ground and like all looking depressed. But
Yeah.
ignoring that, the song is amazing, phenomenal.
Yeah, if there's any a moment that gets you hyped for this show, it should be that opener because oh man.
And it's funny you bring up the opener because the music in general, the score in this show is such a mood.
It is
That's
very
the best way to describe it. It's a mood,
Mhm.
and not even the use of score, but the lack of score at times when they choose to use no sound at
Right.
all.
What if they break through the walls? We'd be sitting ducks on your watch!
Especially, like I said, I'm circling back to the opening because they played the opening twice. We see the colossal titan, as we're led to believe, this giant titan is kicking in one of the walls. We see him initially with a thunder strike with no sound, then they play that scene again later once we see the events that led up to it for them breaking into the city. There's no sound when that happens, and I think that just adds that much of like a,
Right.
oh my god, what just happened?
It definitely adds to that tension because it's like, oh God, what was that?
Right, and it's the show just, if anything, the show just has such an emotional tone to itself. A lot of anime, you can make the argument that it could be goofy, fall into those cliches. I don't feel that with Attack on Titan at all. I feel like everything so far, just based on this first episode, everything's like very serious, sullen and serious. Like this will
Yes.
this will dampen your day a
Mhm.
little bit. So if you're not looking for that, don't watch this show. This show already it's setting a mood for itself.
It is a very dark in terms of, I guess animes, if you will. It's not for the faint of heart, I guess.
No, and just the commentary itself. I mean, just saying essentially that adults are too complacent with their lives and, they think nothing's ever going to happen to them if they just keep the status quo.
Personally, I take a lot of stock in being called a freeloader. It means things are good. It's how I can measure peace of mind.
Good? We live in a cage. All we do is eat and sleep. That's it. End of story. We have the peace of mind of livestock.
just those themes in general are extremely dark. We're also introduced to the Scout Corps. They're the ones returning into the city. That scene, for whatever reason, it kind of stuck with me, where you just see them coming back and they bring back the hand of one of the people that was serving with them, and they give it to the mother, and she just starts crying and bugging out. And I'm like, what the hell am I watching right now? Like, everything feels pointless in this world, and that's a terrible feeling.
It asked me the question of like, well then, why is this even worth it? Like, why do people keep going out there? Like, what is the point?
Right, and that's part of the mystery which we're talking about. There's a lot of mystery.
Right.
Just not just the world itself, where we don't even know anything about what these Titans are or whatever. That we just know it's like kind of like that's why I said I equated it earlier to The Walking Dead. You're trying to protecting yourselves from what's on the outside, like they would do, and protect themselves from zombies, protecting themselves from these giant monsters that are trying to break in. Not just the mystery there, but we touched a little bit on the mystery of like the Jaeger family. Something's going on there. I don't know what that's about. I mean, we didn't get much time with them. Eren's dad, I guess he's a doctor. I'm assuming he's some kind of doctor. There's something with like the key. He showed this key that looked kind of important. They focused on it. The camera zoomed in on it and loomed on it. I'm assuming it's important. Again, based on just one episode, I couldn't tell you, but they're introducing something there. Some kind of mysteries there.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's especially because it got cut off right there. Like,
Right.
yeah, as soon as Aaron's dad said, oh, I'll when I get back, I'll show you what I've been working on in the cellar. And then immediately after, we're met with this scene of the Titan actually breaking through the wall.
I feel like I didn't get much out of the parents really in this episode. I don't know if I was supposed to necessarily. It's not really about them, you could argue. So maybe I was just expecting too much right away. Just like, I felt like oh, hi, I'm Eren's dad. Here's a mystery. Bye. And that was kind of like the end of that whole situation right there.
Excuse me. I'll be late for the fair.
Darling, wait! Scold the boy, for heaven's sake!
I think he served his purpose.
Yeah, I guess so. That's me being nitpicky. It is what it is. Before we get to the part of this show that'll either make or break you, I think on a lot of levels, we finally really get like a good look at the Titans. And holy crap, is that nightmare fuel to last you for the rest of your life when you see those smiling, naked creatures waddling into the city. Okay, I've seen a lot of zombie movies in my time. I've seen a lot of those kind of stories where you have, monsters invading. Nothing compares to this in a lot of ways. Like, this show has set another level for just something so creepy and terrifying. Like the Titan design, it's so simple, yet extremely effective right away.
Yeah, between, as you said, their smiles and the fact that they are naked.
Right.
Like just the way that they move, like the way that their bodies when they run and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's unique as well.
It's unique. I can't say I've seen anything like that, because at times it probably could come off silly if you really think about it. You see these naked smiling people wandering around, that would look kind of stupid. But the way the show effectively uses these creatures, you feel terrified for these characters. The fact that you had the colossal Titan, I would argue, isn't even as scary as the little Titans. I'd rather deal with that giant Titan if that was like, if I had a choice to fight the two. Yeah. I'd rather fight that big one. Those little ones are scarier.
I agree. He seems a little bit more tame than they do. They seem kind of more like I don't know what they're going to do type deal.
Like I said, the atmosphere, the setting, the destruction, the chaos. You just tell these people were not ready. If you want to draw parallels to history and whatnot, it's an attack on a city during like a World War II era setting where there's just a town at peace and suddenly just their lives changed in an instant, and they really capture that feeling. That's really impressive, able to capture that moment.
And this is still the first episode.
I know. And it's like, when we were talking about this, I'm like, oh, well, what are we going to talk about for the first couple episodes? There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to go over.
Yeah,
it's a lot of information. And you know what? I appreciate that. The pacing is consistent. At no time did I feel bored. It's always like breakneck pace for me. But it's giving me the information I'm looking for and I need. Maybe not the answers I necessarily want, because it doesn't think I deserve them yet, but it's giving me what I need for the time. And it's doing it extremely well. Like, if you want an excellently crafted first episode, I would think this really does it in that regard. Like, this is the pace where you're just giving everything to the fans. You're giving them enough to see why they should be invested in your product.
Honestly, I feel like that holds true to a lot of animes, but this one definitely not blows a lot of them out of the water because it is so well done. We didn't know the other two yet, but just the first episode, it is definitely stands out among all of them.
So let's talk about it. I hope you're ready. So the end of this episode, we get one of the craziest deaths I think I've seen in an anime. The way they shot it, it's on another level.
Yeah.
Eren's mother is trapped under the collapsing house. Eren goes right up to her. He's trying to save her. He's freaking out. He's bugging out, of course, as you would. Her legs are broken, which she flat out tells him.
Legs have been crushed. Even if you could get me out of here, I can't run. There's no time.
Whatever, I can carry you!
Will you just shut up and listen to me for once in your life?
Hanasu comes after earlier we spoke about in the episode, Eren and him had a little confrontation about being cowardly and, you know, the status quo. But we get to see him come in and he has to make a decision at this point, right? There's a Titan approaching. He sees Eren trying to help his mother with Mikasa. The Titan's on its way. He looks at the Titan. He freezes. The shadowing work and the art, it's just phenomenal because you truly sense his fear. Like he doesn't know. He knows he can't win. No matter what he does, he's at a loss. So he grabs the kids and, you know, Eren's mother's crying, thank you for saving my children. You know, she's crying as they run off. And then you just see the whole action from frame by frame. It's horribly beautiful.
Yeah, that is, I think, the perfect way to put it. It's horribly beautiful. That's a very good way to put it.
You just see the Titan grab her out of the rubble. She's holding Eren's mother, like snaps her, and then he just bites into her and the blood splatters everywhere. And there's this huge scene and it just ends with Eren screaming and crying. And you're like, wow, okay. That's setting a precedent for things to happen, I think.
Yeah, they don't, they're not whole. It is, they're putting everything out there right away to, you know, let everybody know this is what you're getting into. Are you willing to do it?
In our hearts, we knew home was a pen. Humanity, cattle.
The last thing I'll bring up about the episode, I think the reason it works so effectively is like we talked about the pacing being very fast and very on point. The art style is also like that as well. They used a lot of these like speeding up or slow motion type shots where there's like harsh lines like moving quickly or the whatever they want you to focus on. They add like a sense of like, I don't know if the camera's like shaking or moving at like a hyper fast pace, but they add such a speed and a harshness to everything that I feel like when they use that effectively, it changes the tone of the show completely. That just adds to the overall style of the show.
One part that comes to mind is when the scouts come back from their run and they bring back the arm to the woman when the commander of the scout group, I guess.
Right, yeah.
When he's telling her, when he's informing her of what happened, that is definitely one of the art styles that happens. It kind of shows, you know, how intense the whole scene is and how serious this whole situation.
That's the best word. You nailed it right there. Intense. There's just an intensity to this show that I don't find in many anime that I've, you know, watched, especially recently. There's just something that this show stands out right away. And I would even say right away, I think the show has me hooked. I mean, of course we're going to go through the next 2 episodes, but I would say this has, again, I can't stress enough, the impactful first episode this show has. I think this, if you're interested at all, even in this concept, I think this first episode's going to hook you in.
Agreed.
Episode 2, That Day, The Fall in Shiganshina, Part 2. What are your feelings going into this episode? Now, we've had that crazy traumatic ending. The city's still falling. We're still in the midst of it. What are some of your thoughts with this episode now?
The way that this episode starts with a little bit more of a backstory, of course, as narrated by Eren.
Right.
But it starts with backstory of a little bit, and it just goes to show how long these people have been dealing with this situation and how they actually say that they crave human blood, which, I mean, just saying something like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is serious. Like, oh my, this is crazy.
Right. The world building is phenomenal where we truly see like the structure that we're encased in. Like we had an idea that there was a giant wall. There was like maybe another section. We really weren't too familiar with anything as far as the first episode. The second episode's giving us the whole layout of everything. And the world building, like I said, we're getting almost like a class system. It appears like there seems to be some kind of hierarchy to peasant class system going on.
Whether or not they're verified, the refugees are certainly flooding in like plague rats. There have been at least 500 accounted for in the
The
boats.
question is, how prepared are we if Shiganshina is in ruins?
I find this world very interesting where I'm surprised it's not more modern than it is. I guess it works for the tone that they're going for. It's almost like a medieval tone,
Yeah.
but with a steampunk element thrown into it.
I
But it's
mean, you
weird because
can
only
easily
their
see that
gear
from,
has steampunk elements. Nothing else
right.
appears to be,
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
It's
The
strange, right?
mobility
It's a little
gear is,
strange that way. I question maybe the logic of that slightly. We're not there yet, though. That'd probably be later
Right.
on. But just based on what I've seen, I'm like, well,
Right.
they don't have like, I don't know. There's no other steam powered items. Apparently the gear that they're using in the first episode, we really got to see shooting out strings and flying all around. Seems a little strange. I don't know. Again, that's nitpicking. That's nitpicking.
working on like pulleys and water power.
What else did you find about this? We get introduced to not really new characters in this episode. This is more just, I think, character building.
Besides that, we learn about the whole how the walls are all set up.
Mhm.
Wall Maria, Wall Rose, and Wall Nina, I think
Right.
it is. As you said, it seems like there's kind of a class system. But we also see scenes that of how much of a grand scale that
Right.
that these walls are actually on. Because when they were doing the pullback from, I think it was Wall Maria, and then they were going to Wall Rose, it is a giant expanse of how it's just huge of where these people live in. And that was the part where I was like, wow, this is very interesting. I thought this was more of I guess, a smaller area, but no, it is gigantic.
Right. I'm getting the scope too, finally, that I thought this maybe was like a tiny area, but it's more. The whole structure itself is a lot bigger than we're led to believe. And that colossal titan adds perspective to how big he probably actually is in hindsight, too. Like, I knew he was big,
Right.
but he's pretty freaking big to be able to, like, just to peek over that wall in general. That's pretty sizable.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's very interesting because I mean, and I started asking myself questions like,
Hmm.
okay, if this area is that big, then what is beyond those walls?
Right. And that kind of adds to the characters, right? We get to see how the main characters,
Right.
we didn't talk too much about it, but they do bring that up a lot where they're curious about what's on the outside. And Armin in particular is very curious about what's going on the outside. And I thought it was an interesting quote we have in this episode where Eren's talking to him about, they're talking about what's going to happen next, what's going on. And Armin's like,
No, I used to think our future was beyond the walls, but it's like you told that man. I never seen what they could do to us. So that's it? This is just the way life is?
I just thought that was kind of interesting. Like, Armin he saw a Titan and he's like, all right, I'm good. I don't need to know what's on the outside anymore. There's no purpose. I think too, we get Hanasu who saved them. He's got Eren, he's got Mikasa. He gives them a speech, which I really liked. I would refer to it as the coward speech, where he tells them,
You're a kid. You're weak. I'm worse. When push came to shove, I was too frightened to hold my ground. Your mother died because I'm a damn coward.
that was really touching and just really eye-opening, where, he's realizing at first he was so defiant of his shortcomings in the earlier episode. Now he's pretty much admitting, like, it's up to this next generation to take it from here. So that I feel like that's setting up the future tone of this show.
I definitely agree. It's especially with how driven Eren is to eradicate the Titans. It
To a
kind of
fault,
just
I would
goes,
argue.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Mikasa ends up punching him in the face because of it. But I digress.
Right.
But still, it kind of definitely goes to show where this show is headed. This group is going to be the ones to hopefully make a change in the world.
Episode definitely cemented that, especially what their motivations are going
Right.
forward. Eren, again, as a character, I'm still not sold on the main character. We're 2 episodes in. I sympathize with the guy. Don't get me wrong. I get his motivation more. I would almost argue he's almost like villain-esque in a lot of his like a lot of his like voice work. Just a lot of his choices in dialogue are just very like,
I'm gonna put a stop to this! I'll kill them all! Every last one!
whoa,
Right.
okay. All right, dude.
Yes, it kind of goes back to okay, all right, relax.
Relax.
We're not there yet. Relax.
Yeah, I'm still not so I can appreciate his ambition there a little bit, and I get his hatred. I just, I don't know. He's not really doing it as far as a main character for me yet, which I feel like that says something. I don't know if you would agree with that, where the world is so strong that I care more about the
Mhm.
world in some aspects than I do about the main characters living in the world right now.
Right. No, yeah, I get it. Mine are definitely with the world too. I want to know much more of the world and not so much the main characters as
Yeah.
of right now. And I don't think that's necessarily a problem because then it makes me want to find out more answers about,
Right.
that makes me want to watch more. Like,
We're getting breadcrumbs of
right.
something. I mentioned a key earlier. Apparently that was important because Eren wakes up with a key around his neck and a really creepy scene that was kind of uncomfortable to watch at times with his father with a syringe and him struggling. I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on there. I don't know
Yeah.
how that's going to play, but
Mhm.
that was bothersome.
Gives me more question.
Yeah, and it's weird. I don't know if it's the pacing of the show, but they kind of just like skate over it.
Felt so real.
Nightmare. Shake it off.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know. I'm
Like,
assuming that's very important. We don't know anything now, obviously, but the way they kind of just dismiss it, like, don't worry about it.
yeah, that's kind of like a foreshadowing for sure.
There's something going on. We can agree that there's something going on.
Uh,
I want to take this time too. We get to see another unique Titan in this episode. I'll say it's the Armor Titan. I think we know in episode 3. I think they actually say what it was. I don't know if they do in this episode. The Armor Titan. He has a unique look to the other Titans, and I've noticed that too. The Colossal Titan looks unique, and now the Armored Titan looks unique. Ironically, too, I did a little research on this. The Armored Titan is actually based off a WWE wrestler, which I thought was kind of funny. There's a WWE wrestler named Brock
Really?
Lesnar. Side by side, they look identical. I just think that's really funny. And if you look at them, they're the same.
Huh.
They have the same body type. They're just these big hulking guys. And apparently the creator of Attack on Titan was a wrestling fan, so that was something he wanted to draw inspiration from. That was
Of
a cool
course.
scene. He breaks through the wall, just like he had this big hulking monster chasing through. Something just tells me these Titans are different from the other ones.
It's definitely different because we see the other Titans. They're, going around eating people, but those two in particular, we don't see them interact with, the humans at all.
The other ones they're like wild animals almost. The other Titans are just out frolicking, doing their
Right.
own thing. But these attacks seem very focused. You have the Colossal Titan, which I also find it strange. He only kicked the wall in, and that was the last time we saw him. Like he didn't do anything else. That was his big contribution to
Right.
the battle. This one, he only breaks through the wall, and then the episode kind of rushes to a conclusion, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later. But he breaks through the wall, and that's kind of all he does. Like I feel like they were just they weren't like the other Titans, and that's at least all I can confirm at this point.
I mean, I'm assuming it's to show off what he can actually do, like his potential power
Right.
and how devastating he can be alone. And that, of course, translates down the line to the humans, and they see that they are completely sitting ducks in the water here. They don't really have the correct firepower to fight against something like that.
It's a clear disadvantage. Like these human
Right.
characters are clearly not ready for this. I was kind of laughing to myself a little bit, which is probably kind of sick, but it reminded me of Titanic almost, where they're trying to get on the boat and they're trying to ship all the people away. Like they can only fit so many people
Yeah.
on the boat as they move it out. It's devastating, like for sure. Like they really emphasized like the devastation that this attack had, and that seems to be the overall plot. Is this event is just supposed to shape the characters that we got to know, these 3 characters. This is going to essentially carry through them throughout the series, I'm assuming. Like this is their launching off point for a new generation and, for how they see the world.
Right, as we'll, especially in episode 3, we see how them being on the front line and seeing the Titans compared to a lot of the other people that have only heard the story.
Right.
It definitely makes them stand out more compared to the others that haven't seen Titans.
Exactly. No, exactly. And I one thing that did disappoint me. Now, I do feel like this was a weaker episode in some regard. It's hard. You had a very strong opener, and this is a 2-part episode,
Right.
so you can make the argument. I would say you can make the argument: is the 1 and 2, are they the same episode? Are they separate? They're shown episodically, so I'm going to treat them as 2 different episodes. This one just felt like the cool down to the events, and I was a little disappointed because my narration issue kind of came through a little bit, where I feel like we were just told about everything. Like after the armor titan comes in, we're pretty much just told, okay, this all happened. This is what happened. All these people died. Here you go. And that was kind of the end. I don't know. I felt a little disappointed that way.
After that episode ended, I said to myself, wait, that's it? I feel like this episode went so much faster than the first episode.
Right, and then they end with a time jump too. So that's kind of in the ways that's good and that's bad. That's always an anime trope to use, is a time jump when you need to make the characters older or go to a whole nother sequence. We jump right to the boot camp, so obviously we're moving into some action here. Otherwise, like I said, this episode it keeps the momentum going, but overall still good. Still fine. We're still going. Again, maybe a little bit let down by a narration standpoint for me, but otherwise, no, I think it's keeping the momentum strong for me.
No, I agree. It just gives me more questions.
Episode 3, A Dim Light Amid Despair, Humanity's Comeback, Part 1. So we're at an interesting crossroads, I think. The first 2 episodes were essentially a Part 1 and Part 2. Now we're ending on a Part 1, which I find that interesting. So you can make the argument now, especially in the comments below, is the real rule of 3 going to work for this because we're ending on a part? But I think this episode, it kind of solidified what we can expect going forward, because now we're getting a bigger cast, right? We're getting to see more of the characters at this point.
It's immediately a different feel compared to the last 2 episodes.
Right.
I don't know. It seems more of a lot less serious, I guess, is the way. It is serious still, but the other ones, the first 2 episodes, so like what's going on in the world. There's all this terrible stuff that keeps happening. There's terrible creatures, but then the next episode, I guess maybe it's because we don't see as much of Titans.
Right. Maybe that could be right.
But it just has a complete deal. Yeah. Maybe that's why.
Right. I have some issues actually with this episode, surprisingly, as far as in relation to the first 2. The comedy doesn't really work for me a little bit. I feel like it's out of place. And the reason I think I feel that way is the first 2 were so serious that I feel like we shifted tones in some way, especially the character models. The jokes they're going for, they work in a goofier anime, especially like a more cliche comedy anime where you would expect those kind of poses, those kind of facial expressions. That's common. In this one, it's not, to me. These, I feel like they don't match. Did you get that kind of feeling at times?
100%. Yes. It was, I don't know, as you said, compared to the first 2 episodes, it kind of took me out of the immersion that the first 2 episodes put in.
Right.
I guess, if you will.
Right.
It was so strange to see how some of the, the comedic bits that they were in, I'm like, was I supposed to laugh at that? Is this, I don't know how to take this.
And like I said, the art style doesn't complement what they're going for with the comedy. I'm seeing a very detached comedy element to this show that I don't know if, again, I wouldn't say it's terrible. All right. I don't want to come across sounding like it's the worst thing I've ever seen. It's not by a landslide. It's not bad. It just doesn't feel in place with what the story they're trying to tell, especially when we talk about some of the more serious moments in this episode.
Very interesting. I mean, the potato girl.
All right. You brought her up. Sasha the Potato Girl. The beginning of the episode starts really strong. We start off with, they're kind of doing like a grilling of the new recruits. We get to see Eren, Mikasa, Armin, all these new characters that we're going to be exposed to. I like how they make a comment early on where they've seen death. There's cadets where he's not grilling and they ask,
there are some he's passing by.
A drill instructor is nothing compared to what those recruits have seen. They were there, witnesses to the hell of the Titan attack 2 years ago. You can read it in their faces.
But he's grilling the weaker ones. And then we get to Sasha, and this is really when the comedy it didn't fit, right? Like, I don't know what they were trying to go for. She offers him a piece of potato, and he's like,
Half. Really?
He like lets her go. I don't know. I don't get what was trying to be told there. I don't know if I missed something.
It just stands out so much more than the rest of the show. And I'm like, what the heck is happening?
Why? I can't comprehend. Why would you eat that potato?
Are you asking me why people eat potatoes? I'm surprised you don't know, sir.
And that's not the first time
I
she
just
does
don't know
that in
how to
the
take it.
episode.
Yeah, it's just so weird how this character is set up like this. It's like they just threw her in.
Yeah, and I'll jump to the scene that scene. I can let it go a little bit because I mean it was kind of funny. It was a little off-putting. Like she has a weird quirk. Okay, I get what they're trying to do. Again, I don't understand maybe the logic of him letting her go. Like not really punishing her or being, maybe something was lost on me on that. But later down the line, she comes back and she has this like overtly cliche anime food like attack monster scene where she like takes food from the one girl. I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. She steals the food from her and she starts freaking out like a monster, her eyes glowing red, and I'm like, what anime are we watching?
Just seems like a strange character introduction. That's all it was. That's literally all it was.
Yeah, it just like it happens and they move on from it, and it's like, well, why? Like I don't understand. Like I know you're trying to inject a little humor. I just think there were maybe more clever ways to inject humor into the story than going with these weird anime cliches that we've seen time and time again.
Just compared to the second half of the episode,
Mm-hmm.
it just, I don't know. It just seems weird because compared to the second half is once again, it goes back to being so serious.
Right.
And I don't know if this is going to be a common trope with the Attack on Titan.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so strange how they decided to throw in this really outlandish comedy bit.
I have to question that. Again, it's not, I don't know how it'll affect my verdict later on when we get to it after this discussion, but I think it's something that the audience should be aware of, that yes, the first two episodes are setting a major tone, but I'm going to argue that I feel like there's another tone that's going to, like, if you don't like that cliche anime stereotype, because I thought this show was going in a different direction, right? It was kind of moving away from kind of every other anime on the market, especially with as far as humor is concerned. If that turns you off, I don't know how much it's going to be in there, but you should expect it to some degree. And I think that this episode proves that for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely worth noting.
Eren's kind of a jerk, definitely early on in this episode. And I think he got called out a little bit on it. So I kind of like that, where they call him out on just being so aggressive and so hatred of everything that's weak, and but it ends up being he might be the actual weak one. And I thought that finally calmed down his character a little bit for me. And I thought that was a really good device, this whole storyline they put in.
That was kind of the turning point where I decided, okay, I think I like Eren now. If he continues down this path, then I could get on board with him.
And you got to see him humbled. I think he needed that in a way.
He proves that drive and dedication do not always translate into capability.
And it's tough. It's sad that we had to say that this early on in a show, that I need the main character to be humble.
I think it's better than being some loudmouth, braggart, tough guy wannabe pretending he's not as piss scared as the rest of us.
But I think it was good for his development, where we got to see him. Yes, he's focused on revenge, but he realizes he can't do it himself. Like, he needs other people. He can't shut himself out from the world, which brings us into some of these other side characters. Now, we did meet Jacques. He wants to be in the police force, which is interesting too. So that's a little bit more world building, that there's other corps. I thought maybe it was just one. I guess I'm wrong. I guess there's multiple, apparently.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, apparently there's multiple. It's kind of interesting to see that people are in it for different reasons. I thought that was kind of interesting. Some people want comfort. Some people want revenge. Like there's all different reasons to joining it and getting into like your different sect of the military. But Jacques, at first I thought he was going to be maybe like that cliche rival to Eren, or especially we get that a lot in shonen anime, where we get the character like, I'm going to be better than you. No, I'm going to be, and they keep raising themselves up. I don't know if it's going in that direction. I saw potential with that character. I think there's something there.
With Food Girl, it wouldn't surprise me if they did with the cliche rival as well.
He has one like off-putting thing with Mikasa. Apparently he's like infatuated with Mikasa. Again, that was another like weird tonal shift too, where he's like, I love this girl out of nowhere. I'm like, oh, we're doing that. We're going to that storyline. Like that matters right now.
It just seems that these signs at the beginning of the anime, in the first two episodes alone, that we're not going to have a relationship anime going on here. But then to throw any sort of feelings that, like, how he's so with Mikasa, that, I don't know, it wants to take out of that kind of seriousness, because literally right before that we had a serious scene between Eren and Jacques, how they're arguing about things. I don't know, it just takes me out of the immersion.
I'm not gonna lie to you. The whole Mikasa Eren situation there, I like her character. I do. I want to point that out. I do like her character. But I feel like she's subservient of his actions, so I wonder how that's going to play into her character, too.
You misunderstand.
Let's go.
I'm not saying you should return to the fields by yourself. I wouldn't dream of it. Because wherever you go, I'm gonna go with you.
Once again, more questions.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I hope we get more out of her. I do like her character. I just feel like, I don't know, maybe she's a little subservient to the
Right.
protagonist.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, I think.
We're introduced to Reiner and Bertolt, which I thought were really cool characters. I kind of like them. They're very similar to Eren and Armin when they're having their conversation about their own tragedy with Titan. So I like that bond. I feel like that was formed right away.
Eventually, I realized those rumblings were the sound of death getting closer. I looked out my window
and you brought it up actually when we were discussing the last episode. People aren't familiar with Titans. A lot of these people, or I guess young adults, I would say, don't know anything about what a Titan even looks like. They have no idea what it's like. Only a very select few of them have ever encountered them. So to hear other people's stories and what they're doing to try and overcome the Titans, I thought that was kind of cool. It was cool to see other perspectives of that.
The four of us aren't like the rest of them.
Them who?
The others here who've never been witness to the Titan's horror.
Again, I really, really like that bond, especially with Eren and Reiner. I really like their connection because Reiner seems kind of distant, but at the end he sees Eren's resolve and he's like, he is similar to me. Like he kind of gets what I'm going through as far as wanting revenge and wanting to, overcome an obstacle. I thought that was kind of cool. Again, maybe that's a little cliche for an anime too, but I do like that. I like that camaraderie that we're getting already.
We'll take it from step one, belt adjustment. By tomorrow, you'll be an expert. I know you've got what it takes. I can see it in you. Am I wrong here?
No, I won't fail. Thank you, Reiner. Thank you.
And I hope that continues throughout the series. I would like to see these characters form bonds together like that.
Especially because Eren is struggling with his gear. He's struggling with balancing of the gear.
Right.
So that's why he goes to a few people actually to try and help him out. And to see him and, have that bond with Reiner and to where Reiner eventually, he understands what's happening with him and Eren, or, with Eren himself. And he decides, I will help you.
It's interesting that they went the route that the equipment was defective the whole time, and Eren was just trying to overcome defective equipment, which he was able to. So at the same time, like you said, I guess I kind of did root for Eren at the end when he was able to overcome that obstacle, especially when I found that it was defective equipment. I'm like, okay, maybe there is a little more something to this kid. Maybe he's not just the angry loudmouth. Granted, he is a little bit to me still, but I think there's something else there, which he's just more special than I would think, which you want that out of a good anime protagonist. You want them to have that wow factor to them.
Yeah, you kind of get that moment like, whoa, he did that. So I don't know, it kind of goes to show like maybe he will be the one to actually fulfill what he wants to do.
Get his revenge and get that what he craves so much. And then we end, of course, it closes out. We finally, it's a shame too, we only did watch 3 episodes because we finally get the Omni gear, it's called, zipping around. We get to see Eren flying through the air and all this excitement. And the episode ends and we're like, oh, all right, well, we were finally going to get to see that whole thing in action. But leaving it off at that's exciting to me. So that was kind of a good thing. Like I feel like we got past the training phase to some extent. Now we're going to get right into the action, which I'm all about. I'm all about that. Let's make that quick and zippy. No pun intended.
No, I'm glad that the whole sequence only lasted an episode. With a lot of animes, they go through, the whole arc is dedicated to the training or something.
The training arc, the famous training arc.
Yeah. Yes. I'm very glad that did not last much longer. It's nice to know that we're getting to good stuff.
No, it seems like it, because I would argue this was the weakest of the 3 episodes. Again, it didn't lose me at any point, but I would say out of everything we've seen, I felt like this was maybe the weaker one. And I think a lot of it, again, has to do with some of the comedy just being thrown in there, uneven tone.
Right.
Again, I don't know. again, I would advise people just be wary of that when you're watching the show. It is something that'll come up. I think the future looks exciting for Attack on Titan. To be 100% honest with you, I could see why so many people love this right away. So some closing thoughts here. We talked about earlier we were going to compare the dub versus sub, as I promised. We did watch both for this review just to make sure we were fluent in it. And at least from my perspective, of someone who's I'll occasionally watch sub, I'm more of a dub pursuer. I'm not someone who goes and says I have to watch this in the authentic language. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm sorry. I know that may disappoint some of you. I think there's merits in American voice acting and translating it. I think there's something special that can be there. Attack on Titan, I thought the sub and the dub were equally impressive. I did have one character that bothered me, but going into the expert over here now, Adam, what are your thoughts on the dub versus sub for this show?
This was where I didn't really have any issues watching in either of them.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, I am as well more of a dub kind of guy because it's just easier.
It's convenient.
It's just because I don't know. Yes, that's what it is. It's convenient. It's nice. But I do watch some animes subbed as well.
Mm-hmm.
But this one in particular, I didn't mind either of them really. I had a lot of characters that did like. Some of them stood out a lot more than others.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming we're talking about the same character that we both had an issue with a little bit. I can get over it. But for the most part, I enjoyed both of them.
Armin is the character.
Yeah.
Armin is the character for me that his voice is like nails on a chalkboard to me. I don't know, especially when he yells or screams. I don't know what it was. I just couldn't. It's funny when I watched the dub first, and then I went to watch the sub afterwards. As I'm watching the subtitle, I'm like, oh, I hope he dies. I don't want to hear anymore. It was getting kind of bad. And I'm like, oh wait, I already know what's going to happen. So damn, it is something you can get over. Hyperbole all around on this. But at the same time, that would be one reason I would not watch the subtitled of this. But again, all around, I think everyone emoted very well. I thought all the characters, the voices matched to me. It felt very fluid as far as both are concerned.
Yeah, it definitely, you have to pay attention to not only, the voices matching the characters themselves, but also the emotion.
Right.
It has to be, just right. And I feel like between both the subbed and the dubbed versions, both of them did translate quite well.
Yeah, I would even maybe make the argument slightly that Eren maybe was a little better in Japanese, just because, I don't know, maybe it felt a little more raw here and there. Not that saying that the dub is bad, it's not at all in any sense of the word. But I could see the argument where maybe some people could prefer Eren a little more, because he definitely had an overall raw sense in the Japanese voice. Maybe just because it is the native tongue it's coming from. It did seem to have like that slight heavier inflection at times, especially when he's seeing his mother die. There was just something a little more to it in Japanese.
Yeah, I can agree with that, because in the dub version, it seemed like the Eren that we got for the dub was so angry.
Right.
Just no matter what he was saying, always so angry. But with the sub, we saw the for that he brought away like there was a reason for him to be this intense, this so emotional, and there is a little bit of a tone of difference.
I agree with you 100%. The last thing I want to talk about before we give our verdicts here is both of us, we talked a little bit before if we were even going to really bring this up, but I think we should, is neither of us are familiar with the manga entirely. Like we've seen snippets, right? I've read, I've seen a chapter here or there, nothing detailed. I've seen the art overall, and I find it very interesting when I compare the two. The source material manga looks nothing like this anime at times. This might get me some heat here, so I apologize. I don't think the manga is very well drawn. I don't. Based on what I've seen, like if I were reading the manga, I would be slightly off-put between like some of the environments and just the character work. It's a little ugly, which in comparison, the show is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it is. The show, it's just so, it really captures the tone of that world so well. the way the blending of the color and the shading, the way that they do the cross hatching,
Right, right.
certain areas, it just shows, it brings out so much more detail than
Yeah.
the manga does because the manga is so 2D. I mean, yes, it is 2D, but I don't know,
It's 2D and
there's so
it
much
seems
more depth to it.
yeah, it's 2D and it seems like it's just like sketched out. Like I feel like again, I'm not trying to insult
Right.
the artist. I don't want that to come across that way. It's just it seems more like someone just like sketched out a quick character design and threw it out there. I'm not seeing again, this is from someone who's only seen bits and pieces. Art is a form of expression and so is storytelling. Sometimes your story can be stronger than your art. That happens a lot in manga and anime. We see that a lot. You can have, especially in anime, you can have some amazing visuals, but at the end of the day, there's no substance to it. This, on the other hand, what it's based on, they took it and enhanced it. I feel like they've enhanced the manga with the anime.
I think that's what a lot of the translations between manga to anime they do is because they're two completely different mediums.
Right, right.
But in this case, the anime, it just seems so much more enjoyable because of that, all the emotion of the colors and the blendings and
Right.
all that stuff just enhances not only the characters but just the world in general.
There's just something special about this in motion, maybe, versus the manga. Just seeing these actual moments happen. The show did suffer a little bit later on is something I don't like in anime, which arguably it's one of the foundations of anime is the use of the still. We start to see that a little bit later on where they just use still scenes, right? We see like I think it was in the third episode, we have like Mikasa interacting with Sasha, Eren when he's talking to some of the other cadets and stuff like that. They use a still scene and they're just talking and there's like dialogue over top of it. Now, it's a cost-cutting measure. It's how they save money. They get around it. Some animes are more notorious for it to a terrible degree, which I'm sure we'll cover someday on this channel. Even the stills in this anime are quite beautiful. It's definitely like you said. I think it's a combination of the color, that fine artistry, maybe having just some kind of style, like an overemphasized style. The show knows what it wants to be, and it's capturing its source material perfectly. It's elevating what's already, I think, a great story at its core. It's taking it to literally new heights, in my opinion.
I agree. I enjoy the anime. It's very pleasing to look at.
So I think we're at that point. We're going to give you our verdict. Hey everybody, Kevin here. Sorry for the interruption, but before the guys give you their verdict on this episode of The Real Rule of 3, let me go over the 4 potential scores. Binge it. A must-watch show that is extremely enjoyable and shouldn't be missed. Give it a chance. A show that has potential and is enjoyable, but should be watched at your own pace. Would recommend getting around to it. Put it in the queue. Intrigue is there, but not desperate to continue to find out what happens next. Recommend saving it for later and maybe not returning to it. Skip it. Well, don't watch it. Not worth your time. Now that all that's been explained, let's get back to the episode. Should you watch Attack on Titan? I would say binge it.
Oh, God. It's a Titan.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. Honestly, I can't wait to actually just like jump into it. Now I'm kind of full force. I'm ready to get in to see what this show has to offer. From the moment we watched the first episode, I was hooked. I was, not going to lie. There is some things, like I said, I think the audience should be aware of. Just be aware that while it seems like it's telling a more serious story, there could be some just tone, ill-fitting comedy in the show. That's
Right.
part of the anime way, I think, unfortunately. You know, whether that's a cultural
Right.
thing or if that's just a style thing, I don't know. It's in there, though. If you're looking for something, honestly, to fill like that horror niche, I think it's here. I think there's some action. Seems like it's on the way, so that could be something this could fill. But, you know, just from a pure, someone who observes like that zombie horror mode, you're going to love this. If you're trying to like test the waters with anime, this might be something just to try out to see if it, you know, if it can get you into it. This would be a good entry anime, I think, for some people, just to see if they can get more involved with the story. So, Adam, what would you score this? Where do you stand with Attack on Titan?
This would definitely be a binge it as well.
Shut the gate now! We're being charged! Go! Go! Go!
Every single episode, I kept getting more questions that I wanted answers to.
Right.
And every single time the episode, I'd be like, well, all right, well, I gotta watch the next one. And then, all right, I gotta watch the next one.
No.
So I would agree.
It took me by surprise, this anime. I knew it was popular. And, you know, we always get those animes where I feel like sometimes they're blown out of proportion a little bit, where you're left wanting more. There's a lot of merit to this show. I think it's something special in animation. It's still going on now. It is streaming currently. You're also able to pick up Blu-rays. Always pick up physical media. It's something I always support. If you want to stream it, though, it is available on Funimation, Netflix, Crunchyroll, Hulu. It is also available on. If you want us to take a look at the full season of a show, if you want to see how well The Real Rule of 3 stuck, let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe. Adam, if the people are interested, where can they find you?
On Twitter, my handle is Cosmicality. And
that's fine.
I mostly just I post funny things on there.
Yeah. If you want to reach out to him, you know, through the Real Movie Guys channel. Again, I'd like to welcome Adam. This has been a great experience. I hope you guys enjoyed having him on for this. If you're looking to follow the Real Movie Guys, make sure you follow us at Twitter at The Real Movie Guy, YouTube, The Real Movie Guys, Facebook, once again, The Real Movie Guys. And also, for your listening pleasure, we are also available in podcast form at iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcast, Overcast, Breaker, Radio Public, and Pocket Casts. Be sure to give us a listen at any of those fine places. If you're there right now, hey, greatly appreciate it. Just search out The Real Movie Guys. We should pop right up. Again, thank you all so much for joining us for this episode of The Real Rule of 3 Anime Edition. My name's Kevin. That guy over there, for the first time, he's Adam. We are your Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. We'll catch you next time. Guys channel.